So, hi everybody, Dr. Nikita Vizniak here with the amazing
Dr. Catherine Chung.
and today we are going to be going through a diet for you guys from one of our fantastic books where Dr. Chung is a contributor. So today, of course, we are using our nutrition text as our baseline for this. Steps for feeling better. You can do it. We can help. And today we're going to be talking about what diet first, Dr. Chung?
We're talking about the low histamine
The
diet
low
today.
histamine diet. So we'll just click through, get you to the low histamine diet. So the first thing is what even is a histamine? Maybe we should start right there.
Well, a histamine is just simply a chemical that gets released from your body. It can be found in the nervous system, the central nervous system, the gut, or the immune system in general. And it gets like one of the first soldiers that gets released so that it increases blood circulation and swelling. So then all of your other immune cells, like your white blood cells and stuff, can go to where the issue is.
Yeah. So a histamine response is a normal inflammatory response, correct?
Oh, 100%. And you
Yeah.
do need it. It's the thing that signals like the rest of the army to be like, hey, you need to go over there.
Exactly. We need some help in this area. We've got to fight off an infection or whatever else it
Yep,
is, right? All right.
exactly.
So to begin with, we should identify which foods are rich in histamine themselves. So what are some of the foods that we would include in that list of rich histamine foods?
So rich histamine foods is pretty much anything, as a general statement, would be any food that has been processed or created in a way to stand the test of time, essentially. So it's fermented alcoholic beverages. So we're looking at wines and beers, anything
Mhm.
that's canned, pickled, or fermented. So we're looking at kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, things that use the vinegar, cured meats, all that stuff on that list, and
Mhm.
including aged cheeses as well. A lot of the times when you're eating any of these foods, most notably the aged cheese, you might not have a actual what's it called, allergy to that cheese, but the histamine levels in aged cheese is so high that you can actually feel the tingliness on your
Mhm.
tongue, no matter what your allergenicity is to it, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and some people are surprised on this list. Like things like eggplant and tomatoes, well, we know that people have a lot of reactions to those. But if you look at something like avocados, that's something that a lot of people are surprised are actually on the list, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
Oh,
old nightshades.
yeah, exactly. So it goes beyond that. It's not only the foods that are rich in histamine, there's also foods that can stimulate the release of histamine or inhibit the action of this diamine oxidase enzyme that we have as well, right?
Yeah, which is the enzyme that just breaks down histamine.
So basically, you have a histamine response. This enzyme DAO comes out when you actually need to have an end for that inflammatory process, and it can be inhibited in itself. And if we look at that list, we see some other interesting things there, including, which is kind of a common one for a lot of people, alcohol on that list. Oh my gosh.
Yes, but it's all the fun stuff too. So you're looking at chocolate, like bananas, strawberries, like things that you're just like, oh, these are really healthy for me. But for
Mhm.
some people that have a histamine intolerance, it's actually not that healthy for them. In terms of their immune system, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we always chat about, where diets are not a one size fit all, and even though it might be good for some people, it might not be good for other people, you know?
Absolutely. One thing I'm surprised to see on the list as well is when we're reviewing this in the research, we're looking at green tea and black teas on this list. Kind of a fancy, you would think that these are healthy, good things for you. And I mean, in smaller doses, they are, as long as you're not having excessive response. But what's the issue here?
The issue here is if you have an overwhelming amount of histamine in you, so that's a histamine intolerance person, and
Mhm.
then they're drinking green tea because you know what, it's great, it has antioxidants, it's really healthy for you, but you already have an overload of the histamine, so you can't be blocking things that help reduce that
Yeah.
load, right?
Yeah.
So that's the issue.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what are some causes of high histamine levels that we can see potentially from patients?
Well, you got the more classic ones. So you actually have an allergic reaction to your environment. That's the hay fever or food itself. You might have some SIBO or intestinal permeability. So things where you have a leakiness in your gut, and then your
Mhm.
body's like, nope, proteins are not where they're supposed to be. We're going to create a reaction to that. And then, interestingly enough, it can just be something as simple as a vitamin deficiency or things, medications that you're taking, whether they're prescriptions or over the counter. And you can see right there on that list, that prescription prescription medication list is quite long.
Absolutely it is. And what a lot of people don't realize is even things like anti-inflammatories, a way that they work is to prevent the breakdown of the histamine. So it winds up causing more of an issue too, potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we're going to look at what does the actual corrective diet look like when I'm dealing with patients like this. An antihistamine diet looks like.
The exact opposite of things that have the high histamine levels. So remember, high histamine level foods are things that are meant to stand the test of time. So the antihistamine diet will be everything that's super fresh, everything that will not last the test of time and will probably die off in like in a week or so, or a
Yeah,
couple of
exactly.
days,
We're looking
really.
at like unprocessed foods as much as possible, right? Natural source,
Mm-hmm.
unprocessed foods. And would you recommend for patients an elimination diet where they basically switch over to this and then gradually bring in the other foods that they might like in lower doses potentially? Or what are some good options that we can give patients?
Usually, I find if you have a with the low histamine diet, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But if you have a histamine intolerance, it's an all or nothing thing.
Mhm.
So you have to go 100% with it. For some people, if it's really specific foods, it's not like say they're having a reaction to a specific food, then of course you can eliminate everything first and then start bringing back things in, so long as you know what that food is the issue, right? Or
Mhm.
which food is the issue.
Yeah.
So there's no black and white answer to that one, I would
Yeah,
say.
absolutely. And like that's what we see in most of medicine. It's on a case by case basis, absolutely. But of
Mhm.
course, it's not a forever diet, basically, is what we're saying. There are things where you could, in smaller doses, potentially challenge yourself a little bit into those and looking for these key symptoms of histamine intolerance, which can be vague and difficult to figure out in the early stages, especially for a number of people.
And it's all over the place, right? Like even the last one on the list, dysmenorrhea, you're like,
Mhm.
oh, like my period pains are due to a histamine intolerance. Like you wouldn't really necessarily bring those two hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it could be 100%, but it could also be just, it gives you like an extra 10 or 20% exacerbation of symptoms like the
Mhm.
insomnia, anxiety, all these things are multifactorial. Well, if this gives you that extra 10% of inflammatory response that kind of gives you over a tipping point, the dietary changes can have substantial effects in your overall life.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So then we can go ahead. Therapeutic uses. So one of the main uses that we talk about in medicine typically is going to be migraines, right? People who are suffering from those triggering foods that can cause vasoactive changes potentially in the histamine release can be looking at reduction in symptoms with a low histamine diet. What other benefits do we find therapeutically?
Well, of course, there's the hives, the urticaria, because with the histamine release, you're going to get itchy skin. So if you even if you don't have the hives itself, but you get that itchiness in the skin, that actually helps a lot in blocking that histamine or reducing that histamine level. There's GI symptoms, and we know that because histamine gets released in the gut, so it makes sense that by reducing histamine load, that it would help with a lot of GI issues such as IBS or SIBO or just increased gut permeability, and then panic attacks as well, because
This is
it's
a big
if you
one.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, right. It says like the research is showing 100% of patients in the case in that case report had complete remission, and it's just because you're not inflaming your brain anymore. You're finally quieting down that brain. And a good example, if you're looking at the mechanism of action around it, is if you take Benadryl, which is an over-the-counter antihistamine, right?
Mhm.
What it does is it blocks and lowers the histamine most notably in the brain, and that's why you actually you feel drowsy on Benadryl, because you don't have that histamine to like spark your brain to stay awake anymore, and
Mhm.
that's why Benadryl has that drowsiness aspect of it. So if you think of that mechanism of action, it's going to be exactly the same with the low histamine diet as well. You just reduce inflammation in that good old noggin of yours.
Yeah, except that you're also doing it in a more gradual level and a natural way to support it just through the food that you're eating. Excellent. All
And
right.
it's more sustainable.
Absolutely. That's the biggest one. Exactly. You can't be, it's not a shortage of Benadryl. It's your problem. It's the histamine levels that are the issue, right? So there's other ways to
Mhm.
find a solution for that problem. Okay. So I'm a patient out there. What are the key things for diagnosis of this condition?
Diagnosis is looking at just any functional GI disorders. So what that would mean is if to rule out or rule in the reason why you have IBS or IBD, and that could be SIBO, leaky gut, any of that type of stuff. If you get your DAO enzyme tested, some people naturally have a low serum load, and then
Mhm.
you would need to dose with DAO. And then just if you do this diet and then you feel better, then that's just black and white.
Well,
Like
that's
you can't
exactly,
beat the results on
that
that
is
one.
literally the simplest thing you could do. Change your diet, see if it changes your functions. Now, if I change my diet, how long should I expect before I start to see changes? I know it'll vary from person to person, but what is a general rule of thumb?
General rule of thumb is you have to give something, any diet, 3 months.
Okay. Yeah. So
3 months
3 months of,
chance. Yeah, it doesn't mean like you won't see any result during those 3 months. It's we're looking at like full resolution of a lot of things will be
yeah.
at that 3 month mark.
So effectively in 3 months, you have any of these symptoms, we should see a reduction in these symptoms over that 3 months. And you'll use outcome markers to measure that: frequency of headaches, intensity, dysmenorrhea, panic attack frequency, whatever the symptom is, you should see a substantial reduction in those if the diet is correct for you.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. And there is this section that we have here about supplementation and stuff. Supplementation, amazing if the cause of the high histamine levels are due to those things, right?
If you have a
And that's the
deficiency.
biggest
Yeah.
key.
Yeah.
Yeah, so vitamin C, B6, C. So those are, that's an important to note because some of the deficiencies is copper and zinc.
Mhm.
However, if you don't actually have a copper and zinc deficiency and then you start taking copper and zinc, it can play around with the ratio a little bit too much. It can actually throw you into anxious or depressive episodes. You can
Mhm.
actually spark that. So you don't want to give yourself more of an issue. So that's why diagnosing and ensuring that you know what's going on first before you supplement is super duper important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that would be the key thing. Again, just back to try the diet out for 3 months. And then if you're feeling as working, then you've reached the result. If it hasn't, now further diagnostic procedures are required. And then we could figure out if supplementation may be a correct fit for you. All right.
Yes, sir.
And this is my favorite quote from all the research that we did on this: freshness is key when you have histamine intolerance, from Dr. Amy Myers there. That was fantastic. Is there anything else you would like to add, Dr. Chung, about this diet?
I think this diet is an amazing diet. I feel like if you have hay fever, it might be one of those diets that you might want to adopt during the spring summertime and kind of just help reduce that histamine load. And it will kind of, you can rotate through the diet, I think would be the biggest thing. So this is a really important one for people with immune issues already.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Okay, Dr. Chung, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah,
Fantastic to
thanks
see
for
you as
having me.
always.
Of
Okay, and we'll
course.
see you in the next video.